Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. Before we get started, a little bit of an addendum to the show. As soon as we finish recording, as you know, because you were a part of this, the Sacramento Kings and former now GM Monty McNair mutually decided to part ways. We just got that news.
Yeah.
What's your initial reaction? I'm sure it's not shock.
No, I'm not shocked at all. Although it is funny that they let go of their GM after the two major moves that just happened over the last 6 months.
Right.
You would think that they probably trusted the person who made those decisions. But nonetheless, this is just another set of rash decisions by the Kings. Like, I'm not surprised that they let go of their GM. It just shows a history of Vivek Ranadive basically continuously doing this, firing coaches, letting go of GMs, trading players very quickly. Like, that's just the way that the Kings have operated. And it's funny because when we talk in the pod about Kings versus
Spoiler
Bulls,
alert.
I have a clear cut.
Spoiler alert. We mentioned patience and how that can be a benefit to you. And the Kings, you know, listen, I will say this. They gave it a shot, but you double down on fool's gold. You know, that 3 seed year, it was very clear that that team had some issues. I don't think anyone should be surprised that they've wound up where they are, except didn't take that long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's the thing.
It's really unfortunate from a Kings fan perspective to get to this point, but it is what it is.
Well, anyway, that's our addendum. Now to the rest of the show. Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. Coming up, the Heat and Mavericks are moving on in the play-in. Christian Clark's here to talk about the Mavericks facing the Grizzlies, and we debate who has the worst future between the Bulls and the Kings. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, S.
Good morning, Chicago.
Which one?
Both.
The one in California? Yeah.
Or no, the purple one. Yeah.
Play-in last night. The Heat looked pretty good. Tyler Herro continuing his most improved player campaign. Try to say that just once and stumble over it. Had 38 points. I mean, the Heat just dominated this game. The Bulls really just they showed nothing. No fight at all in Chicago. They got booed. Fans were leaving with about 5 minutes to go. About as bad as you can get for the Bulls.
Yeah, it was funny listening to the broadcast and Mike Breen, you know, the Bulls cut it to like 17
turned into
or something.
A roast.
It
turned into a roast.
Yeah. And, you know, they're trying to cut back into this lead. They're down 17 and Mike Breen is trying to get you interested in this game. He's like, all right, well, you know, they're down 17. Let's see if they can make a run in his very casual Mike Breen type of way. But you're right. The Heat dominated in this one. There wasn't a soul on the Bulls who could guard Tyler Herro. There wasn't one single player on there that could even remotely guard him. He was getting tons of opportunities to get downhill. The driving was there, the pull-up shooting. He was feeding Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo. It was basically a free money for what the Heat were trying to do offensively. Bulls, we've kind of been fans of the fun, interesting season, but now it's over, and now you have tons of questions heading into a pretty interesting offseason for them. Yeah,
for Miami, look, this is a team that they had a weird year, right? Jimmy Butler saga, the I don't know, up and down play of most of the team outside of Tyler Herro, and Bam Adebayo even had an up and down season. But this game, they got contribution from just about everybody. We got to talk about Davion Mitchell. I do believe it's in your contract that anytime he has a nice game, anytime Davion Mitchell has an on night offensively, we have to talk about off night. He was 5 of 5 in the game. He really has provided a spark for them off the bench since he's gotten there. And it's something, it's funny. It feels like Miami always has a guy like that. And he might be one of the best ones that they've had.
Yeah, no, he definitely fits the Heat culture aspect of things with the way that he guards defensively at the point of attack. And this was a really important year for Davion. Like, he was entering a contract year. It was like, all right, are you going to stay in the NBA as a rotation player Goes to Toronto, obviously was good enough to get traded for from Miami. And now is contributing to a team that might be in the playoffs. He's shooting the lick out of the ball too. Also, he's shooting like 45% from three as a Heat. So it works well. It pairs well with what Tyler Herro can do in the backcourt. So it makes sense for them. I imagine they re-sign him this summer just because of how good he's played for them. Yeah.
And the Heat, they've got the Hawks Friday in the play-in matchup. We've never had a 10 seed make it out of the play-in. Feels like we got a good shot here. I just like how the Heat looked in their win a lot more than I liked how the Hawks looked in their loss. I think that especially the end of the game for the Hawks, just, you never like to see your best player getting ejected out of what was clearly frustration, a little bit with the referees, but I think, Trae Young wasn't happy about the loss either.
I will say there was no one on the Bulls that could guard Tyler Herro, right? But there definitely is someone on Atlanta that could guard Tyler Herro in Dyson Daniels, and you can even throw Risa Shea on there and Guy, who was really good with his length against Orlando. So they do have a little bit more functional size compared to what the Bulls have. So they might be able to keep up defensively. That's the way I'm thinking about this. And maybe Atlanta with Trae, it's basically just Trae and Herro going back and forth. And maybe the role players on the Hawks shoot better. They made 4 threes, right? Because they're at home. And so they made 4 threes against Orlando. If they make 10, maybe it's a different series. You know what I mean? Right. So that's sort of the way that you got to look at these play-in single elimination games. Just shooting variance plus, is there anybody to guard the best player on one of those teams, right?
Yeah. Outside of the Bulls, by the way, it's like the play-in is sort of like SEC country or whatever. It's Atlanta and Miami and Orlando. The Mavericks, kind of did almost the exact same thing as the Heat did to the Bulls to the Kings. They win 120-106. We talked the Mavs side of this with Christian Clark. That's coming after the break. But for the Kings, I mean, this is just, again, we've been calling them Chicago Bulls West. And for them to lose in the play-in as the home team, exact same scenario, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, same situation, different uniform for the Kings.
Yeah, the Jonas Valanciunas play-in streak is over. That's done. And it's one of the more unfortunate intricacies of the play-in history. But yeah, look, this team, I think with the way that they were set up, obviously missing Malik Monk is big just because of his ball handling, the shooting, and et cetera, what he can provide for them offensively. But the Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan formula does not work defensively. They were getting cooked at the point of attack. And then they had no size to answer against Anthony Davis and Derek Lively and those guys. So Sabonis just struggled in this one. And they are also headed for a very interesting offseason. So you look at the Bulls.
Well, they just had an interesting season, right? Like
totally.
They got, there's no De'Aaron Fox. There's no Mike Brown now.
Mike Brown gone, right? Yeah.
Basically, your head coach and your point guard, your best player, both out the door. You go into the summer. You've got DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. I mean, you got somehow older and worse during the course of the season. That's pretty rare to pull off.
I wonder if they start to entertain the idea, and I know it's crazy to suggest because of how many wholesale changes they've made over the last 6 months, but I do wonder if they start to kick around the idea of trading Domantas Sabonis and just completely starting new, because he's the only guy on this team that has a lot of value that would probably receive tons of interest around the league because of the fact that
you will wait now. Tons
maybe
of
not
interest.
Tons, maybe not tons, but there's interest compared to DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. That's where I'm at.
I actually see. I would disagree. I would say that there would be more of a market for DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine because they're two guys. I can tell you what they do. They can get you a bucket. They can get their own shot. They can usually create for other people. Domantas Sabonis is a really good rebounder, and he is efficient as an offensive player. But the limitations in his game, defensively, he puts the Sabonis ceiling on your defense because he is your 5, and he just doesn't provide much rim protection. He does make up for some with rebounding and positioning, but it's just not that, right? He can just be abused. And then offensively, he doesn't bring enough because, you can sag off, you can dare him to shoot. He just doesn't have a lot of in his bag. And so I would actually disagree. Now, maybe they're in a position where they have to blow the whole thing up. And that's where I want to come to this. Not do they blow the whole thing up, but when you look at what the Bulls have going on and you look at what the Kings have going on, I want to ask you, like, who has the brighter future, which is probably going to be mediocre, just given the history of these two franchises. But which of these two teams you think feel like they could be the 6th seed? Man. If everything breaks right for them over the course of the next few years, could be the 6th seed. Which one?
I can't believe I'm going to answer this question this way, but it's the
Bulls,
Chicago Bulls that have the brighter future. And there's a couple of different reasons for this. One, they're younger, right? They're not relying on, a Sabonis who's going to be 29 or DeRozan who's in his late 30s and Levine who's like getting up there slowly. I think you have Kobe White. Very interesting to see what they'll do with him this summer because he is contract extension eligible. He's not going to sign that extension because it's not enough for him. And, basically he's going to walk into free agency next summer. How are they going to extend Josh Giddey, who was good in the second half of the season? I thought he's another player who has clear holes defensively, some limitations. So like, how much are you going to invest?
Too. Yeah,
totally. How much are you going to invest in him long term? That's a big question for Chicago. But there's upside. Like Modest Buzelis, very interesting player. Maybe he pops for them in year 2, showed some bright spots. They will have their pick this year. Maybe they land a guy. And so I think if you had to answer the question, it's the Bulls, even though both sides, you're not really excited about the prospect of whatever's going on in the future,
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the Bulls is I will give them credit for stability.
Yeah.
Billy Donovan's been there for a while. I mean, they don't just go and fire guys. But at a certain point, you got to figure out who can be in there and get results. So maybe maybe that's not the right move for the Bulls. But yeah, I think I'm with you. Also, I'm pretty high on Kobe White. I think he's good. I think Vooch is a piece that if he wants to come back and play next year, he's pretty good. But if they want to move on, they probably can get something from him. I know he had a lot of teams interested in him this year. So yeah, man, the Kings. They just can't seem to pull themselves out of that hole.
Being the Kangs. It's such a wild thing to think about. Like the Light the Beam season was maybe one of my most entertaining teams of the decade. They were so much fun to watch. The fans were incredible. The vibes around that team was just incredible. I got a little Light the Beam thing behind me right now. Like it was so great to watch them. To fall from grace like this, I think a part of it is just being way too confident in one single good season. That they had.
Grace also might be a little bit too much. They had one good season. They were the 3rd seed. Right. It was great. Right. Great story. We love to Light the Beam. It was a fun time. But man, the Kangs are back. Guys, stick around after the break. Christian Clark's here to talk about the Mavericks and how they match up with the Grizzlies. The Dallas Mavericks are moving on in the play-in to face the Memphis Grizzlies on Friday night. Here to talk about it, Christian Clark from The Athletic. He covers the Mavericks for us over there. Christian, the Mavs got the win in Sacramento, had some highlight moments. What was your favorite thing from the Mavericks win?
Yeah, I mean, the Mavericks are leaking oil those last 20, 25 games. The Luka trade, Kyrie Irving injury, a bunch of other injuries. They're going to have a chance to make it to the playoffs. I think my favorite moment from this game, I mean, I enjoyed Klay Thompson's kind of explosion in the second quarter and him getting a little play in redemption. But I got to go with Brandon Williams. I mean, the Mavericks were so depleted at guard. They basically started Najee Marshall at point guard. Brandon Williams, who started the season on a 2-way deal, was questionable coming into this game with injury. He played really well off the bench, 17 points. I mean, guys got game.
Yeah, he went on a little run by himself there for a few minutes.
Yeah, he knocked down some threes. He just looks comfortable as a scorer, which is really cool to watch for a guy who obviously spent time in the G League and the way that's translating to the NBA is fun. I'm curious if because of this run, is he a part of the long-term plans now? Do you expect him to be on the Mavs next season and onwards because of the way that he's been playing recently?
Yeah, I do. And I think about a week and a half ago, he got converted from a 2-way deal to a standard contract.
Right.
And they announced in the press release, it's a multi-year thing. So, they made it clear at the time that, he's going to be on a standard deal next year, and they're going to need it because Kyrie Irving is going to be out for a big chunk of next year too.
Yeah, well, they're going to need it Friday. I mean, they need scoring. You mentioned Klay Thompson. He started the game out, he missed a few shots, and then just caught fire. We could have called this a Klay-in game because he puts up 23, goes 5 of 7 from 3. Klay Thompson, just nightmares for the Sacramento Kings.
I mean, look, 1 year ago today, Klay Thompson 0 of 10 in the Warriors play-in tournament, lost to the Kings. His last game as a Warrior. I mean, that just had to be sickening for him to go out like that in his Golden State career. I mean, this doesn't make up for it, but this has got to feel pretty good, right? And I just think Klay's season in general is fascinating. They got him in the sign and trade. Nico Harrison says, we felt like we were a Klay Thompson away from a championship. And then in February, it's like, boom, Luka Doncic out the door. One of the guys who's supposed to give me all these easy looks. March, Kyrie Irving goes down. Well, that's the other guy who's supposed to give me all these easy looks. I mean, Klay just kept playing. I think he was second in games played on the roster. 35 has got nothing left to prove. I mean, it's been fun just watching him compete this year.
Speaking of Nico Harrison, there was a lot of conversation about defense wins championships. We can get into that a little bit later, but you saw the vision tonight with how ginormous, just massive the Mavericks were. The front court with Lively and Gafford, or Lively and AD. They threw out a bunch of different combinations throughout the night. You have PJ Washington, Najee Marshall. Klay was basically the smallest guy in that starting lineup. Yeah. Is that sort of the way that they envision the way this team is sort of supposed to be moving forward? Just massive on the wings and winning defensively that way?
Yeah, 100%. When they made this trade, their idea was PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively front court. I mean, maybe you could swap Gafford in there, but that was the idea of what to do at 3, 4, 5. I think they saw, that Lakers team that won the title in 2020 with AD, playing a lot of his minutes that year at power forward. And that was a model for the Mavericks and why they made this trade. And, I think this game was interesting coming in because it's like, this is just a big stylistic difference. I mean, it's like Keegan Murray or DeRozan and Sabonis for the Kings of the front court. And it's like, 6'11" AD and 7'1" Lively for the Mavericks. I thought
the Monstars on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, like Sabonis did, he didn't do much in this game. I mean, it was just, they were too big, too athletic inside.
Yeah. Even just the contrasting styles to start the game. Like I thought the Kings kind of looked like they came out trying to throw haymakers the whole time, and the Mavericks just kind of stuck with what they do and wind up, with the big win. I want to go ahead and think ahead. All right. They've got another must-win game Friday night. It's win or you're done for the year. How do you feel like they match up with the Grizzlies as the Grizzlies have been playing here recently? Not the Grizzlies that were the 2 seed earlier this season, but this Grizzlies team, I mean, they're coming off a loss to the Warriors, obviously fired their coach. How do you feel like the Mavericks match up?
I think it's a lot different game than what we saw, Dallas and Sacramento, just because Memphis does have size inside. The Mavericks aren't going to be able to treat them like they're the JV team, or little brother or whatever. Like they've got Edie, they've got Jaren Jackson Jr. inside. It's not going to be super easy like it was for Dallas. So I think it's going to be a much harder game for them, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of it's like, we saw Ja come down awkwardly on his ankle. How does he look and how does he play? Because I think if Ja's, pretty close to Ja, like I definitely like Memphis in that game just because, Dallas doesn't have a lot in the perimeter. Like, I thought it was fascinating. It's like this team started out with Luka and Kyrie. They're as loaded at guard as anyone in the league, as loaded as you could be in October. And in an elimination game, they're starting Najee Marshall, who I love. I love Najee Marshall, but they're starting Najee Marshall at point guard. It's man, things have really changed.
They need 17 points from Brandon Williams. Literally needed it to win the game. It's a stark contrast. What about defensively? Are you worried about Ja Morant's ability to get into the paint against this team? I mean, they're huge, but Ja creates chaos, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious who who the Mavericks put on him. I mean, is it Najee if they stick with the starting lineup? Is it PJ Washington? I mean, I would imagine it's got to be one of those two guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought it was interesting tonight. I mean, AD just started out the game on DeRozan. I think the last time Dallas and Sacramento played, DeRozan had 42 or something like that. I mean, AD wasn't able to play in that game, and tonight they're like, cool, we're just going to stick AD on DeRozan. Like they're comfortable putting AD in a lot on these perimeter players sometimes. I think Ja's a little too little for AD to start.
I don't think we're going to see much of that.
And like also you could find a way to space out with Ja, like let him shoot. I mean, he's been shooting well recently generally, but if he's not able to physically be that guy attacking the basket, he's going to be playing on the perimeter a lot. And maybe you could just give him that space to shoot those shots.
Sit and drop all day long. If they run those screens with Zach Edey, I definitely think that you'll see some of that. Maybe they've got to contend with some Jaren Jackson, Ja pick and pop, but they don't run that as much these days. Okay, before we get out of here, I have to ask you, because it's not often that you have a GM who is as unpopular as Nico Harrison, and I can't remember in the 8 years I've been doing this any GM having a closed door press conference.
Crazy.
Okay. How does this team ever get over this if they continue to roll around in it?
I mean, when you ask Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd that question, like, how do you move past this? All they say is win. That's what they just keep going back to. Like, we just have to win. So I guess I'll say they have to win, and I don't think they can win.
I know
enough.
what you mean. Yeah,
I don't think they can do that without Kyrie. So it's like we can't even. It feels like we can't even begin to have that conversation until Kyrie gets back on the court. Until I don't know, January, February, whenever that is. I mean, I think it's just going to be a lot of discontentment for a long time.
Do you envision the Mavs making any wholesale changes this summer? I mean, obviously they still have a game to play here, but this summer, looking into the offseason, do you think, given all of the turmoil over the last couple months, there's going to be any sort of wholesale changes of anything for them?
I would lean towards no right now. I mean, just kind of the vibes I'm picking up is, I don't know that Patrick Dumont is happy right now, but I just don't see him like making a change at GM right now. I think, Nico, Kyrie Irving, and Anthony Davis, those guys are all kind of aligned. I mean, Anthony Davis has 2 years plus a player option remaining on his deal after this season. Nico Harrison told us yesterday he's got 3 years left on his deal. And Kyrie Irving has a player option this summer. Shams Charania said before the game, hey, there's a chance that Kyrie Irving signs a 3-year deal with the Mavericks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see all three of those guys kind of aligned for, a 2-3 year window coming up here. Yeah.
I don't expect Nico Harrison to be fired. I would never advocate for somebody to lose their job, but I don't expect to see that because look, man, there is an old adage I'm going to, bring back up. Double down, don't apologize. If anything, he's going to get a contract extension. There's no way. You can't be this wrong this publicly for this long and just expect them to not say, no, we're going to do the opposite thing. I just don't see it happening. Christian, so if they win, they get Oklahoma City, which is a team that they were sort of perfectly built to match up against. You give them much chance in a series like that?
No.
Again, it's no guard play. I mean, it's just all the things that have kind of stuck with them here at the end of the season. Anyway, Christian, thank you for hanging out with us. Appreciate you staying up late. That's going to do it for today's show, folks. For Christian Clark and Es Baraheni, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.